Hello, it's Mike Endicott again here, um, your host on this adventure into God's story, this series that we've been working on together. And last time we met, we were looking at a possibility of a little mini-series, a study, which meant watching the video. It meant downloading the free ebook called Ambassador, and it meant looking at the author's note and the introduction. I wanted to take a moment just to recap with you what the author's note and the introduction all are saying. And really, the author's note tries to address the question. First of all, says, what is prayer? I mean, is prayer really worth it? Does it actually work? Is there really a God up there? I mean, if God was real, how come this has happened or that awful thing has happened? There are all sorts of how can there possibly be a God when ... because prayers are not answered. I prayed for this and nothing happened. I remember one lady talking to me once saying that there couldn't possibly be God because she had prayed that God would keep her husband safe driving to work and back every day. And after about 15 years, she faithful prayer, and after 15 years, he got hit by a drunk coming the other way and killed coming home. So she had decided that God wasn't worth it and didn't bother anymore. And you can understand that. Bless her heart. It's because she understood that God is in control of everything and can just force his will on everybody. And it's only when I said to her, but God doesn't force his will on other people. If you want to go out and get drunk and kill somebody on a road at 70 miles an hour, then that's something you're doing. It's nothing to do with God. And when she began to think about this and realise that God is not an enforcer of his will, her attitude to him turned around, thankfully. But he's not an enforcer of his will, but he does have a will. He has a strategy. He has this huge plan covering the Bible story, covering our story. It's as we explained in session 1, massive plan. And the joy of it, to me, is that all righteous prayer comes from heaven in the sense that the plan exists, the plan to recover a wonderful state that we will describe his strategy as we go on into these sessions, I'm sure. But it's all there, and if we start to make up our own minds what to pray about, we tend to, the answer may often be no. But if you pray according to the strategy and according to his prompting as to what to pray for, then the answer is always yes. That's quite a thing, isn't it? But the reason why prayers do sometimes get answered, but rarely get answered, is that we are not listening to God as to what to pray for. What we tend to do, I think, is some of us, of course, pride ourselves in being terribly spiritual and think that we have discernment and can discern what God's saying and what he isn't saying. Well, yeah. Can I be very straightforward and say to you that even a blind squirrel will run into a nut sometime? It is possible. So I want you to be assured that it is. People are so complicated. That's the problem. I was involved with a young man not so long ago who was badly born with considerable disability. But his mother has the same complaint, and his grandmother had the same complaint. And the mother and the grandmother were saying to him, please don't blame God for this, young man. It's our fault because obviously you've got some inherited genes wrongly or something. It's all come from us, so blame us and all the rest of it, and let's keep God out of it. Now, it's a terribly complicated situation, that. I mean, despite tons of prayer, nothing was changing in that little boy's life. So what was restricting the change? Why wasn't God answering prayers and rushing and sorting it all out? The answer is, I would guess, I don't know yet, but I would guess probably the answer is that people weren't actually listening. You see, people are so complicated, aren't they? We are so complex. What is affecting him? What is breaking God's grace from going into that little boy, and what isn't? Is it the parents? I don't know. But we holy people can always sit and say, well, God said this, God said that. I want you to know that on a good day, when we're using our own discernment, on a good day, we can be 80% right and 20% wrong. On a bad day, we can be 20% wrong, right, and 80% wrong. 80% wrong on a bad day. It's the other way around. So, here's the question. Are you having a good day or a bad day? I always have to ask myself that every day when I'm in prayer, to make sure that I'm listening and not just listening to my own heart. Okay, so that's where we're after here, is making sure some prayer is answered, some prayer isn't. Sometimes we can hit it, almost by mistake, but we can get God's line right. But the author's note really is trying to say to us, please learn how to listen and stick with the shepherd when you're being guided through the field of life. Now, the introduction, I thought it'd be fun if I told you what Christmas was like for me growing up. Very exciting time. We used to gather. I can see it now. We used to sit in front of a roaring fire with a long fork, that you could stick toast or chestnuts on or something and hold it in the flames. And we were had to write out on bits of paper all the things that we wanted for Christmas, and surrender them to our mother, who said that she would need to read them to make sure the handwriting was legible, because Father Christmas wouldn't be able to send us anything if he couldn't read the handwriting. So we then stuck the paper on the end of the fork and held it over the flames, and of course it frizzled up the chimney. It went across the oceans to, is it Greenland, Finland? I don't know, where Father Christmas's factory is, where he could reconstitute the note and see what it is we wanted and select off its stuff for us. And then he would turn up on Christmas Eve in the dead of night, park up his sleigh and reindeer on the roof, come down the chimney with a sack over his shoulder, and come out into and put stuff in the stockings on the end of our beds, and wonderful. But then on Christmas morning, of course, we woke up, and of course we dived straight into our stockings, and of course there were some wonderful things there that Father Christmas had bought us. We had a jolly good ritual performance in sending stuff up the chimney, notes for him to move, but actually we never had a ritual for thanking him afterwards. We didn't do a thing like that. We just got stuck into it. I just felt, writing the Ambassador book, I really felt that this was such a good picture of normal, everyday prayer. Prayer can be something you do at home. It could be something you do in the street when you come across an emergency. It could be something that you do regularly in church. But most of it is wish listing. Most of it is sending stuff up the chimney to Father Christmas. Now, I don't want you to think that I'm being critical of the way you pray. I'm not. What I'm trying to say is you may only have half of it. Half of it is, in fact, asking God to do this or that. But the half that's very often missing is to develop the bit that says, here's God saying, I want you to pray for this, and I want you to pray for that. And then put that on your wish list, then your prayers will always be answered if they're righteous prayers. So that's where I'm going to leave this one. That's my view of it. Emphasize over and over again, because this is the big step to put the cart back after the horse and not the other way around. Wish listing is fine. I'm not critical of anybody, at least we're talking to God. But what I want us to do is to talk to God about what he wants to listen, to hear, the opening doors for him that he has in his plan to open up. Now that might be one door which releases enormous amounts of grace. It might be a tiny little door which is in a whole chain of events which needs to take place. And it may be that God is asking different people to open different doors in a given situation, because, of course, he works through our personalities and so on. So there's great freedom in this. But I do want you to be encouraged and just know that real prayer is one, listen, two, pray. Whereas what we tend to do at the moment is just the to pray bit. So I bless those thoughts to you. I hope that clears up some stuff and encourages you to go on, because we've got some wonderful stuff ahead of us, I tell you. Terrific stuff. Now, for next time, for session 3, this is session 2. Session 3 is the mini study between the two, would be, again, to get hold of this free ebook that you've downloaded, I hope, called Ambassador, which, if you haven't, it's available on this website. Ambassador, the free book, and I want you to read, if you would please, chapter 1. And it's next time we meet on a video like this, we will be discussing, that's in session 3, we will be discussing chapter 1 of the book called Ambassador. So I bless that to you in Jesus' name. See you again soon.